What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the reveal of the 26th team in my 2020 NFL Power Rankings with a deep dive into the Cincinnati Bengals. Before we hop in, a quick reminder, please do hit that like button down below. If you enjoy the series, this video, you want to see it get more views and support the channel, that is the way to do it right there. So thank you in advance. Now, this Bengals team has actually come in a few spots higher than you're going to see out there, which means I do generally believe in this team. Obviously, a lot of that does come down to the rookie quarterback, Joe Burrow, showing some faith in the rookie to come out here and make an impact. But there's a lot of talent on this roster as well that we need to talk about, and we're really not going to waste a whole lot of time. We're going to get into it pretty quickly here. If you're new to this series, what we do here is we go through the roster, we rank each position, how they stack up with the rest of the league. While we do that, you will be looking at my own custom Madden roster. So yes, it is a video game, I realize that, but these are my own ratings, and it's a nice copyright-free graphic to use to show how I perceive each player. So then after that, we're going to go through the schedule, talk about this team's Vegas over-under, and my win total expectations for this team. And then we'll be on our way. So we're going to hop in here, go through this roster. You know, I will say one thing kind of holding this team back off the bat, though, is going to be the head coach here, Zack Taylor. Actually, in my mind, I would consider the single worst coach in the entire NFL at the moment, and that's just because he has shown us literally nothing. It's not to say that there isn't some potential in there. He's still a young guy. He didn't exactly have everything go his way last year. A ton of injuries for this team, by the way, that we could really go into how many things went wrong for this team last year and why they weren't truly the worst team in the NFL, in my opinion. But that said, Zack Taylor was not like a Brian Flores or some young coaches we've seen in the past where they're able to, kind of inspire some confidence and get the team on the same page and get better as the year went on. This team really fell apart. So that's a bad indication of his leadership, in my opinion. As far as the scheme goes, this guy was really the pinnacle of the hired because he knew Sean McVay joke that was really a running joke all across the NFL all of last offseason. And, it kind of backfired on this Bengals team. Looked like one of the worst hires of that hiring cycle. So, Zack Taylor has a lot to prove. Can he innovate a scheme that has kind of been weeded out a little bit? That 2018 Rams offense, the play-action heavy, deep shot play-action offense. Can he actually, bring his own ideas to the table here? And he just has to prove that he can do that as the quote-unquote offensive guru here. So I will say that is definitely a major, boom or bust aspect of this team. If Zack Taylor was fired after this year, it really wouldn't surprise me. And that would probably be more likely, in my opinion, than him becoming a really good head coach. I do really like this team, but in general, I don't really believe in Zack Taylor, unfortunately, which is going to make me pump the brakes overall on this team. But after that, it really is pretty optimistic, and that definitely starts with the quarterback here. So let's jump into the roster here. And Joe Burrow with this quarterback room going to rank 18th in the league. And a lot of people are going to have a problem with that, ranking a rookie over some other solid veteran options out there, considering we haven't seen Joe Burrow play in the NFL. But I saw a really good point on Twitter the other day, that works both ways. Like, you can't necessarily rank a veteran over Joe Burrow knowing we haven't seen Joe Burrow play. So, these young quarterbacks coming to the league ready to go. And Joe Burrow didn't just put up one of the best, actually the best statistical season we've ever seen in college football. It was probably the most impressive NFL-style tape that we've ever seen from a quarterback at the collegiate level, which really gives me confidence that his skill set is going to transfer to the next level. There's two huge things that, as much as I liked guys like Kyler Murray, Sam Darnold, there's two things with Joe Burrow that really inspire confidence that he can come in here as a 23-year-old and be a day one impact and a day one top 16 quarterback or so, namely the processor. This guy had an answer for everything. Pre-snap, he knew what he needed to do, but if you threw a blitz at him, he knew where to go. He recognized zones, threw accurately all over the field. Like, he has it put together mentally, almost unlike any rookie quarterback I've ever evaluated. So that is going to give him a huge bump. And And then he has something else too that a lot of these other quarterbacks do have that we've seen be a trait that helps these guys at the NFL level, talking about the mobility and beyond that, the ability to sense pressure, manipulate the pocket, knowing when and how to use his feet to extend plays. Joe Burrow did this at an elite level at LSU, and we've seen this really help young quarterbacks who can't necessarily be up to speed mentally when they are maybe a second or even a half second below on their decision making. It can force them to play off rhythm, and a lot of times these teams get drafted to bad teams that have bad offensive lines that force this trait to come out as well. But looking at guys like Kyler Murray, Carson Wentz, Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, all of these young quarterbacks have come into the league in the modern game and shown that mobility can really help these guys develop and avoid mistakes and just play confident despite perhaps having a bad offensive line or the best play calls not coming in. And I think that's also going to help Joe Burrow. So even if going back to like my evaluations or whatever, like my total grade, I don't think Joe Burrow would have come in over Kyler or Sam Darnold, who I was very high on. Those guys were all the number one quarterbacks in each class, but I actually feel more confident in Joe Burrow as a rookie to be an impact player, and that is definitely going to help boost this team up above having, the worst coach in the league, in my opinion, and above being a team that had the number one overall pick last year. So I feel very good about Joe Burrow and what he's going to bring here. I rank him 18th, and honestly, that's about as low as I could see this going. I think he's going to be a great rookie. I traded up for him in my Dynasty Rookie League. So I'm pretty fired up about Joe Burrow, and I can't wait to watch him. I mean, the dude was just electric, and I hope that transfers to the NFL level like I think it will. Behind him, no one really worth talking about. Ryan Finley, he got his crack last year. They just kind of wanted to see what he had to bring as a fourth-round pick. They bench Andy Dalton for him. That was just kind of a waste of time. At best, he's going to fix some things and be a career backup. I kind of liked him coming out. Showed some good downfield aggressiveness and accuracy in kind of a Ryan Fitzpatrick kind of way. He's a long track of development away from becoming anything like that. And then you got Jacob Delagala, who came in and I guess played fine for an undrafted rookie quarterback, but he's nothing. I don't think he's going to make the team. So no one else really worth talking about. This is Joe Burrow's room, and the future is all about Joe Burrow, no question there. So let's move on to the running back situation here. Ranking 6th in the league, so the talent continues here. Joe Mixon, I think most people that are paying attention recognize that talent-wise, he's a top 5 back or so, depending on preference, I suppose. I mean, he does everything, not just the vision, power, elusiveness, contact balance that you look for as a runner. Like, he is truly a do-it-all running back, but beyond that, he offers that receiving ability as well. A good route runner, hands out of the backfield. That shiftiness shows up as a receiver, and the explosiveness for big plays as well. I think talent-wise, he is a top 5 back in the league. He just hasn't had the help around him. Now, we're not going to get too in deep into this, but he is a holdout candidate. He's on the last year of his rookie deal, not getting paid a lot of money. He's in a weird spot where he has kind of a colored past. He hasn't had the breakout elite season to really say that he's worth that top dollar. So there's reasons for him to come back almost kind of to prove things, but he also has some injury background as well. I think the league recognizes that this guy is a super good running back, and if he were to hold out and then hit the market a year later, he would get paid a pretty massive payday from somebody. And I think the Bengals actually should pay Joe Mixon because of the rookie contract for Joe Burrow. It kind of balances out the whole don't pay running backs thing. So I like Joe Mixon a lot. You've got a great third down weapon, a guy that defenses definitely have to account for in Giovanni Bernard. Most of us are very familiar with Bernard. He's been around here for a while, and he is what he is. He's a great receiving back, a third down back. He has enough talent as a runner to be a threat in that regard to keep defenses honest on 3rd and 7. You could run a draw and he could pick it up. So he's a good threat. And then you have Rodney Anderson, a 6th round pick last year, who just is unfortunately one of those guys that is super good when he's on the field and everyone kind of knows it, but he's never on the field. He tore his ACL last year. there's a world where he stays healthy and is a feature back in the NFL. I think talent-wise, he wasn't that short of Joe Mixon coming out of Oklahoma. He wasn't quite as explosive, but pretty similar skill set as far as that do-it-all back. He just can't really stay healthy. So definitely something you got to keep an eye on. He's coming off an ACL injury as a guy that never really had a healthy season in college, so probably never going to result in anything, but definitely a talented football player. Treyvion Williams, also a 6th-round pick in 2019. I don't think there's a whole lot there personally. Samaje Perine, a name that's been around, more of a name than any sort of talent at the running back position. It really is about Joe Mixon, Giovanni Bernard. To me, it's a great 1-2 punch. Again, they rank 6th at the running back position. And then the wide receiver room, this is another spot where they have more talent than they might get credit for. It's a very important position. These guys that can create separation, be good jump ball targets for Joe Burrow, and really instill confidence in the young man. As bad as their offensive line might be, that we'll talk about in a second, I think that this wide receiver core really will help this team make some noise on offense. Joe Burrow similarly played on an LSU team that, yeah, they had a couple of offensive linemen get drafted, but those guys were like sneakily really bad. And if they weren't on the LSU offense, I don't know if those guys would have been drafted as high as they were. But that's a tale for a different time. Burrow had incredible receivers at LSU, and I honestly think this Bengals team is sort of an NFL replica of what he had at LSU. I don't know if this team is proportionally like the second best elite group of receivers compared to the NFL as LSU was, but you get the point. Like AJ Green, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, even an Auden Tate's a big-bodied threat. You got a speedster in John Ross. You've got those running backs out of the backfield. He has some options. So I really like that they brought AJ Green back. I think this is something that Joe Burrow was really pushing for. To franchise tag him, it might not make sense to give him a big contract at his age with his injury questions. And I don't think the market for him really is that he would hit the market and get this big, 4-year, $80 million contract. And I think AJ Green almost knows that as well. And a lot of people have thrown AJ Green trade rumors out there for a long time without realizing that AJ Green actually really likes this Bengals organization from all we can really see. It's a team that drafted him. He's had a lot of success here. He's probably a Hall of Fame Cincinnati Bengal. He's a prideful player. I think he's a guy that looks at this as a good opportunity to retire as a Cincinnati Bengal and have kind of a redemption year with a quarterback here. So I love that they bring him back. I think he has a good year if healthy. He probably will play banged up at times and miss a few games. It's just kind of what we've seen from AJ Green. But when he's on the field, he's a top 10 wide receiver and definitely a name that you don't really see on those top 10 lists anymore. But I imagine he'll be a top 10 wide receiver in the year 2020. And then I think the next receiver we should talk about is Tyler Boyd, who's definitely kind of that bigger bodied slot target. Think like Michael Thomas-esque, not quite the playmaker Michael Thomas is, but same idea, like gonna be too fast for linebackers to cover, too big for slot corners to cover. Same idea here with Tyler Boyd. He is an excellent slot wide receiver. I think with Joe Burrow here, he is very similar to what Justin Jefferson did out of that slot position for LSU. So again, kind of sticking with that LSU offensive theme here. And then on the outside, you've got T. Higgins, which was an excellent draft pick at the top of the second round. Now, personally, I probably would have gone offensive line. There's some really good options there, but I do get why they did this. They don't know for sure how long AJ Green is going to be here. Again, he's on that franchise tag. He very well may be in his last year at Cincinnati. We don't really know how that all is going to play out, but ultimately T. Higgins is going to be that big-bodied, outside, true number one wide receiver, so to speak, for the long haul with Joe Burrow, because AJ Green's just not going to be here forever. And T. Higgins, I really liked him in this draft. I think guys like Denzel Mims, Michael Pittman got too much love for being lesser versions of T. Higgins, as people just kind of dismissed T. Higgins. Who didn't have the flashy 40 time or whatever, but T. Higgins is an excellent wide receiver. No, he's not a guy that's going to create elite separation. He's just not that kind of athlete, but almost in a DeAndre Hopkins type of way coming out of Clemson. A 4.56 40 kind of guy, like he's not a burner. He really isn't, but he's physical. He's got some of the best hands in traffic and just hands, period. Like when he's open, he's not going to drop the thing. But he understands how to get open as well. He's got craftiness elements to his game. He's got the sort of shiftiness to set up defensive backs, fake you out with a little shimmy, make you think he's running a corner route, and then all of a sudden he's wide open on the post. Like, he can get open. He just is an elite athlete to create those mismatch problems so easily. But we've seen guys like him work out in the NFL. So I really like the T. Higgins fit here. Those three guys, you're looking at a really nice 1-2-3 punch. And the depth here is actually pretty relevant, especially in the wide receiver room. So you got John Ross. Freaking Zack Taylor's got to find a way to use this guy. Like, he is a mismatch nightmare. Like, his speed is legit. He's shown those flashes. He's just got to stay healthy. It probably will never happen for a full season, but maybe in a Deshaun Jackson kind of way. You know, Deshaun Jackson at this point, he's probably only playing 8 to 10 games in a season, but he's still a good football player. They can unlock John Ross here. Am I going to predict that it will happen? No, but it very well could. Like, the talent is there. The guy was a top 10 pick for a reason. We're all just kind of waiting on John Ross to show up, and this is his contract year. They turned down his 5th-year option, so we'll see what he brings to the table. Alex Erickson is a very good slot wide receiver option. He's a guy that, honestly, in a different scheme, I think could be a starting slot wide receiver, but they just haven't really turned things open for him, and you've had Tyler Boyd here. But when he's gotten opportunities, he's actually produced. And then you have Auden Tate, very much a depth piece at this point. Showed some flashes last year, but with Higgins and Green out there as the big-bodied outside wide receivers, Tate's just not going to see the field very much. And that's probably your wide receiver room. Damian Willis showed some flashes last year as an undrafted guy. He might make it as a 7th, but that's really the wide receiver room. And then the tight end group, you do have some promise in Drew Sample, who was a 2nd-round pick last year out of Washington. He was one of these guys, similar to like a Foster Moreau, even like a George Kittle coming out, where he was more of just a blocker, but they just didn't utilize him in the passing game. So he has the athleticism. It's not like he had drop issues or anything. He is an interesting piece. I actually kind of believe in Drew Sample, and I think if they can kind of get some more identity here in a play-action heavy scheme, he, in theory, could really be a good fit, and we've seen a lot of tight ends take a year to come into their own. So do keep an eye on Drew Sample. I think if you're in like Dynasty Fantasy Leagues, he's a guy that I'd be looking to kind of add, because CJ Uzomah is technically the starter. He's going to lose that job to someone eventually. You hope it's going to be Drew Sample. Then you got Mason Schreck, Ethan Carter, kind of an H-back guy, Jordan Franks. These guys are all backups. And then Mitchell Wilcox, another decent undrafted free agent pickup out of USF. So the receiver room, a lot of names to keep an eye on, and I really like this group. They are going to rank 14th. And honestly, if AJ Green and John Ross can play the entire season healthy, I really do think health is the biggest thing for John Ross. If you can just get those guys to stay healthy for a year, it's a top 10 group for sure. And if Drew Sample can break out, that would definitely help this thing as well. And beyond that, we kind of mentioned the running backs helping this grade as well for kind of their contribution as receivers. But now, unfortunately, we have to discuss this offensive line that sucks. It's the worst in the league. Yes, Bengals fans, you do get Jonah Williams back. I loved Jonah Williams. I loved that pick. Excellent. You have a left tackle. I love it. I'm thrilled about it. If it weren't for him, I don't know what I would say about this offensive line, because your left guard, your center, your right guard, your right tackle, quite frankly, are probably none of them starting caliber players, which is just embarrassing. That's why I probably would have not taken T. Higgins with the 2nd pick. I would have gone with maybe a tackle, a center, a guard, something in there. But, that's we had draft season for a reason. This is talking about the team they have now. So I like Jonah Williams a lot, and having him in there is going to be great. But at left guard, is it Xavier Su'a-Filo? Not a starter. Michael Jordan, a 4th-round pick last year. Billy Price, a 1st-round pick in 2018 that's been one of the bigger busts of the last couple years. He has been just miserable. So the interior is a wreck at both guard spots. Those are really the names that are going to be competing. You have Akeem Adeniji, who was a 6th-round pick tackle. He's probably more of a guard. I saw him as a pretty low upside kind of guy that just isn't ready right away, so I don't think he'll start at guard. My guess is you're going to probably get Xavier Su'a-Filo, and I would guess Billy Price gets the nod over Michael Jordan. Neither of those guys are very good players. You do have Alex Redmond as well, who's kind of a veteran swingman guy that's never been a good football player. So the guard positions is a train wreck. If you just ranked the 64 starters in the league, the Bengals might have the 63rd and 64th ranked guards. And then at center, you have Trey Hopkins, who, he played like okay last year, like sweet. Like he's at best the 32nd ranked center in the league. Like, okay, maybe Billy Price can totally turn his career around and start at center like he did at Ohio State, but And then Bobby Hart's been one of the worst starting right tackles in the league. Now, he can kind of get in guys' way. They way overpaid him. He's no good. You do have Isaiah Prince, who they picked up from Miami. There's no way around it, guys. This is the worst offensive line in the league. Joe Burrow is going to have to do some pretty special things to have a consistent season. Now, he can do it. He did a lot of it at LSU, but there's no way around it, man. This offensive line is going to hurt this team, and they didn't do enough to fix it. And between that and Zack Taylor, that's what's holding this team back right now. They've done a lot of great things here. It's been a pretty optimistic deep dive, but there's really not much else to say about this offensive line. So let's not beat it into the bush. So overall, they're going to rank 26th for the offense, which is weird. It's a weird dynamic. Like, you have really good, promising quarterback play, running back, receiver, like the skill players are all there, but the offensive line and the play caller and the head coach here, big thumbs down on that one. So that's going to drive it down. If the offensive line can figure some of these pieces out and these guys all for some reason click as a unit, and maybe if they could just be the 26th ranked offensive line, and Zack Taylor turns out to actually be a head coach now that he has a quarterback, it's going to be a top 20 offense. They've got the pieces, but that is unlikely in my opinion. So they're going to rank 26th for offense. Now let's talk about the defense. It's a really talented defense that does not get enough credit. That's really where I stand on this team. Now, like, the coaching and culture here, again, this team fell apart last year. This team had no identity. They played for nothing last year. Lou Anarumo has shown me nothing that gives me any confidence. So again, the coach and culture is going to drag this team down. But the run defense, they got great bodies here. It starts with the interior. You got a regressing but still pretty dominant Gino Atkins. DJ Reader was a good signing from Houston. He really rounded out this defensive line to be one of the best D-lines in the league. And then you have depth as well. Ryan Glasgow, Josh Tupua. These guys can really rotate and defend the run well and keep a veteran like Gino Atkins fresh and ready to really rush the passer, which is ultimately what he does best. And then Renell Wren is a 4th-round pick last year. I would predict somewhat of a breakout year from him to become a relevant starting caliber player. This team has really developed these interior defensive linemen really well. Andrew Billings was borderline dominant against the run last year, and I think Renell Wren can step into Billings' role as a rotational quality run defender. So I like the interior quite a bit. They have excellent run defenders on the edge as well. Sam Hubbard, Carlos Dunlap, Andrew Brown is a bigger bodied kind of interior, 3-tech, 4-tech hybrid type of guy. They even beef up that group with Khalid Kareem in the 5th round out of Notre Dame. And then these linebackers, it's a much improved linebacker room as well. We'll talk more about them in depth with the linebacker ranking. But overall, they have really good bodies to defend the run. They're going to rank 16th, but it's going to be one of those really good run defenses, assuming they can put it together from a scheme, effort, coaching standpoint, which this team doesn't necessarily have the benefit of the doubt at the moment, but I have no concerns about this run defense whatsoever. The difference between the 16th run defense and the 4th in reality is marginal, to say the least. But then the pass rush here, very good. A top 12 pass rush for me. So Carlos Dunlap is still kind of the number 1 here on the edge. Definitely regressing, but still relevant. I would say he's a very low-end number 1 at this stage in his career. But then you have good rotation on the edge. Carl Lawson, I do worry about that knee. He fell to the 4th round because of injury concerns. But when he's out there, he's a really freaking good pass rusher, a high-end number 2. So you got a really good edge duo. Sam Hubbard can get after the quarterback. He's more of this high-end number 3 kind of rotational piece that defends the run really well. but he's got some good pass rushing elements as well. If Carl Lawson can't be on the field, he can play at a starting caliber level. It just lowers that ceiling off the edge a little bit. But other than that, on the edge, there's not a ton of guys to really mention. Khalid Kareem, a 5th-round pick out of Notre Dame. I see him as more of a run defender, a guy that at his best might become a Sam Hubbard as a really good run defender and a low-end pass rusher, but I don't think you're getting that year one. But the interior pass rush helps this group a lot as well. So you have Gino Atkins, who's still one of the 10 better interior rushers in the league. Just a year ago, he was like the 3rd best, 2nd best, like elite interior guy, but he's kind of regressing pretty quick at his age. He is 32 years old now, so you can't really blame him. But they bring in DJ Reader, who was a handful last year rushing the passer. And I even think guys like Glasgow and Renell Wren can be a problem on the interior as kind of more explosive, bigger-bodied guys. So I like the interior rush as well. Overall, a really solid group. You don't have that fear factor guy. You don't have Aaron Donald, Myles Garrett, Khalil Mack. A lot of those teams that have those are going to rank above a pass rush like this, but you got a bunch of bodies that you got to account for, and I do think they're going to get after the quarterback really well. So they're going to rank 12th there. And then the linebacker room, only going to rank 24th because of the youth and just kind of question marks that surround a bunch of guys likely starting here that we just haven't seen yet. But they're players that I do really like, and I think their skill sets are perfect together. So your kind of starting nickel linebackers here, to me, are most likely going to be Logan Wilson, who was a steal in the 3rd round. I thought he was a top 50 player in this class or so. Just has everything you look for from that Mike linebacker. He's got the size and burst and instincts to thump and play the run, but he's got good route recognition to at least drop into zone and long arms to disrupt passing lanes. Now, he lacks some of that quickness to like man up tight ends, man up running backs. He can do it, just probably not at an elite level. Think of like a CJ Mosley type of player here with Logan Wilson. So I thought that was an excellent pick in the 3rd round. I think he's going to start at Mike and be a real impact right away. So definitely keep an eye on Logan Wilson. But then Jermaine Pratt, he's a guy that isn't necessarily super physical, but had some of these coverage instincts you look for. My comp for him coming out of NC State last year was Nigel Bradham, who's had really good years for the Philadelphia Eagles in a very similar 4-3 scheme like this as that weak side linebacker. So to me, 2 3rd-round picks in the last 2 years, they got to grow and learn not just how to play together, but how to play in the NFL. But I love that group for the future. It's just right now I'm not going to rank that super high. But it's not just that. You get a lot of good depth here. So Josh Bynes, when they go base, I imagine will be on the field, and he very well could start over either of those 2 guys we just named. He was excellent the last 2 years. Still an underrated player that I don't know why he didn't get paid more in free agency. So he very well could start. He's kind of that higher floor veteran. Was great for the Baltimore Ravens last year. So you at least have one quality starting player. I just think they might want to lean with a Pratt and Wilson combo to see how they can kind of grow together, kind of play that developmental angle. But I do think we'll see a lot of Josh Bynes, especially in base defensive packages as that strong side linebacker. And then the list continues. You've got Jordan Evans, who's kind of a smaller, good athlete, weak side linebacker depth. Akeem Davis-Gather, this team took in the 4th round. Now, I was stunned they didn't take an offensive lineman by that point, especially after you already got Logan Wilson. But they clearly want to fix this linebacker room. I guess I get it in a way. Anyway, Akeem Davis-Gather is a player a lot of people like. I liked him as well. Kind of that true weak side linebacker, half safety, half slot corner, or I guess a third of those two, and a third linebacker. But a really good athlete, a guy that can be more of a matchup problem, manning up tight ends, manning up running backs, manning up bigger bodied slot receivers, something that you're not going to get from Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt most likely. Then you have Marcus Bailey, a 7th round pick out of Purdue, who is sort of similar to what we said about Rodney Anderson out of Oklahoma last year. It's like when he's on the field, he's a really good football player and he pops and he's a good athlete. Just might have the upside to start next to a Logan Wilson or a Jermaine Pratt. A really good football player, just hasn't been able to stay healthy. But you do want to keep an eye on Marcus Bailey, even Marcel Spears, an undrafted free agent out of Iowa State, a good cover player. So this is one of the deepest linebacker groups in the league now. It's just a matter of these guys growing together and emerging as starting caliber guys and not just good, capable depth. But for now, they're going to rank 24th, which is certainly respectable for how young this group is. Then the secondary, I like this secondary a lot. They rank 8th, and I think this is probably where people sleep on this team the most. So William Jackson had a bit of a rough year last year, but he is a really good corner. I still classify him as a low-end number 1 starter, somewhere like a Byron Jones or Xavier Howard. Like, he's a really good football player. And now they bring in basically the Minnesota Vikings secondary with Trey Waynes and Mackenzie Alexander, who are definitely, Waynes was overpaid here, but he's a good number 2 corner. Like, he really is. He takes some extra gambles. He'll get beat, but he makes up at times a lot of times with his athleticism too. So I like Trey Waynes and Mackenzie Alexander. I don't know why he didn't get paid more. He was kind of this year's Brian Poole, just an underpaid, cheap slot corner who just plays that position well. He's super physical, defends the run. He's not a great coverage player, but he's definitely a serviceable slot corner. If nothing else, a cheap replacement for Darqueze Dennard here. So I like this secondary a lot, the corners, and then the safety room is excellent. Jesse Bates is still one of the hidden gems in the NFL. He's one of the best 5 to 10 true free safeties in the league as that rangy, instinctive, ball-hawking center fielder. I think he's going to have a great season this year and maybe have that sort of, for whatever it's worth, that Pro Bowl breakout, kind of in a way that Kevin Byard had for the Titans in about his 3rd year. So I love Jesse Bates. And then I see a competition here between Shaun Williams, who's a good, capable, strong safety. I actually don't know where Bengals fans come in on Shaun Williams because he can be hit or miss. He's a really good run defender, and he's had some moments in coverage, but I think he also kind of shows a lack of range and coverage instincts at times. So I am curious, Bengals fans, what do you feel about Shaun Williams, particularly against Von Bell, who's a former Ohio State superstar, coming in here, a good free agent signing that I think is going to compete with Shaun Williams. So your guess is honestly as good as mine on this. I think both these guys are very similar. Williams a little more maybe conservative, a little more of a higher floor veteran. Von Bell a little more aggressive, a better athlete, potentially a better number 2 to Jesse Bates. So that's an interesting battle. Whoever wins that job is going to be the starting strong safety, and then whoever loses that job is going to be that dime safety off the bench that kind of moves around and does a little bit of everything. So regardless, you've got a really good safety duo here. So as a whole, this secondary you got to recognize as one of the better secondaries in the league, and they're behind now a very deep, talented front 7. If this defense comes together, you're looking at a likely top 10 defense. It's just a matter of all these pieces clicking together with a coach that you just don't fully believe in. I do want to run through the rest of the depth in the secondary, especially at corner. It's just kind of non-existent. So after those 3 starters, there is a massive drop-off, right? You got Darius Phillips, a 5th-round pick that we don't know what you're going to get, and then a bunch of, kind of cheap free agent pickups. Greg Mabin, Torrey McTyler, Brandon Wilson's been here seemingly forever at this point. He's never done anything. Tony Brown's a good athlete. LaShawn Sims has had some time in Tennessee but never amounted to much. It's just not good depth. Those top 3 have got to stay healthy. There's no way around it at corner. You don't want to have one of these guys come in. And this team could really benefit from bringing in a veteran corner as a 4th guy here. Someone that can actually start in a pinch. But yeah, if this secondary is healthy, it's a very good unit, ranking 8th. So the defense as a whole comes in 23rd just because of some of those question marks, specifically with the defensive coaching culture, but a young group of linebackers, more of a thin secondary. There are some question marks, but I feel pretty good about this being at least a really solid defense that in the right matchups are going to cause some serious headaches. So let's wrap this thing up and take a look at the schedule here. And I do want to thank everyone that is listening to this in the podcast version, the Fully Inflated Football Podcast, up on your podcasting services. I know it's a little tough to follow with the schedule, but I do encourage you to kind of head over to YouTube and at least look at this portion on YouTube. But anyway, they're going to start with the Chargers. I do think that the home hype in the opener with Joe Burrow is going to be enough for them to persevere and get this win, especially against whether it's Tyrod or Justin Herbert there. But then the road games in the first half of this team's schedule is really tough. At Cleveland, at Philly, weeks 2 and 3. Then you get Jacksonville at home where I gave them a win, but then at Baltimore, at Indianapolis. All 4 of those road games have good pass rushes. It's a common phrase, I truly believe it, that bad offensive lines, just offensive lines in general, but specifically bad offensive lines, do not travel well in the NFL. Now, hey, if there's no fans in the stands, this could pivot, especially early in the season, could play in the Bengals' favor. That's another interesting question mark dynamic for this team, but that's a whole different subject, but certainly food for thought. They got Cleveland and Tennessee at home. I think they'll split that. It's hard to say who they're gonna beat between those two teams, but I think they can split that. But looking at about 3 and 5 at the midway point, you got to go to Pittsburgh, go to Washington, Giants at home, at Miami. That's not the worst stretch. That could be a big swing point in their season. They get Dallas and Pittsburgh at home, and then at Houston, and then versus Baltimore. So basically a really back and forth season I predict for this team. Their Vegas over-under is 5.5 wins. I've got them at 5-11. So, no bet on the over-under. Win range of 2-9. There's just a lot of variables with this team. A rookie quarterback, a coach that I have no confidence in. When you have a roster like this that is talented in some points but really thin and weak in others, you're going to be a more matchup-dependent team that's going to lead to kind of a wishy-washy season. But I will wrap by saying, if this offensive line and the offensive coordinator can get some sort of continuity and some sort of faith that they aren't the worst at their respective spots in the league, this is a sleeper playoff team because of Joe Burrow and because this defense has a lot of potential and these receivers. So while I'm not going to pound the table and say that they are going to be a great team next year, I do think the Cincinnati Bengals are looking up, especially from a roster standpoint. So I'm going to end on that note. Please do hit that like button if you enjoy, guys. Drop a comment down below if you think this ranking is right, who you think is next. Cheers as always, and we'll see you for the next one. Peace out.